TMI. Confessionals of the Nerd Kind.
I hear the popcorn popping, and
I could be drowning in it.
And when that popcorn is popping, don't come a knocking because we are recording.
If the corn is a popping, don't come a knocking. There you go, folks. That's a t-shirt.
That's our new TeePublic. But yeah, the popcorn means that court is in session, and this is TMI, Confessionals of the Nerd Kind. You are listening to Jim, myself, and Jeff, my compatriot.
Hey, welcome over there, everybody. I am drowned in popcorn over here. How many layers of napkins do you need to put on your lap in order to?
There's more popcorn on my lap and in my chest than there is in the bucket at the end because it just falls down my shirt. It's like I'm picking it off me when the movie's over.
I'm actually embarrassed if there's somebody sitting behind me because I tend to eat like an animal when I'm in the dark. I'm like shoveling this stuff in like I may never eat again.
Is it like a feed bag? Can you connect it to your ears?
Yeah. Why don't they just do that? Just give me a feed bag. I did get the giant gallon-sized bucket of lemonade. All I want is the frozen Coke, and they've done away with it. All I get is cherry and the blue stuff now. So I settled for a lemonade.
But the cola flavor, you're saying the cola flavor is no longer there, and
they haven't had it in months. No, and my protests go unheeded. They don't care. They don't care.
You're probably there more than anybody else.
That is probably true. Half of them know me by name. What are you seeing today, Jeff? What are you seeing?
So if we were a fly on the wall in Jeff's lobby, you would hear that what Jeff was seeing would be Maxxxine. That is our feature film this week.
Yes, I actually had to show ID in order to get in.
You really?
No, I'm kidding.
It's like at the grocery store. Like, I got to do this, man. Come on. Where's your driver's license?
Yeah. Although the kid behind the counter did snark when he showed me the layout and he goes, "Ooh, packed theater," because there was nobody else in there. Although right as the credits start rolling, like after the previews, a couple came in and sat behind me.
Really? Because I would think that your theater, being in a more populous area than I'm in, would be packed. Yet yours wasn't, and mine was for an evening showing. So,
but you went. So I had to go during the week. I went Thursday at 7:00.
Okay, so I went Saturday, but it was the second weekend. It was the second weekend.
You just stumbled out of the theater. I think you're still wearing the same clothes as yesterday.
Yeah, it was like 12 hours ago.
Yeah, you were like Guilala, drunkily stumbling down the street.
Guilala. That's one of the best names I've ever heard for a kaiju.
It is the worst name ever for a kaiju.
Songs should be made about this kaiju, and there are songs in that movie, but who knows what they're saying.
I kept waiting for the green slime to show up, but they did not, unfortunately. So, but that is our movie on the back end. The X from outer space. You see what we did there? Maxxxine with the X's. X from outer space. Oh, we are so clever.
We almost went triple X, but we spared you.
Triple X. Speaking of triple X, so I had to do a lot of homework in order to get caught up on this movie. I actually had to sit down and watch X and Pearl,
which you took a pass on when we actually covered those two films.
So hold on. No, I think I was on vacation, and you and Christina chose that as an opportunity to watch these two movies that I may not have anything really to bring to it because I'm not a big fan of the genres, so to speak. But I will tell you, after watching X and Pearl going into Maxxxine, I was very excited.
Yeah.
And I will say I have one complaint about X. And that is this. Toward the end of the movie, old lady Pearl stabs a guy through the eyes with a pitchfork. He's peeking through a hole in the bottom of the barn door, and she stabs him. Why are there 3 perfectly round holes in the bottom of the door, just enough for her to fit the pitchfork through and stab him in the eye?
Well, obviously Pearl is disturbed. So I think maybe that is something that she said, maybe someday some
kid will be hiding from me,
or somebody,
and he's going to peek through this hole and I'm going to get him.
And the dream came true.
So it was premeditated.
It was.
Because if you watch Pearl, those holes are not there yet.
Pearl
Set
does
up.
take place decades before, so she could have rigged that whole property between then and
Like
the
Kevin
events
from
of
Home
X.
Alone.
Yeah.
She's just waiting. Well, she did feed that alligator. She was waiting.
Yeah, and you could see that this is a regular occurrence at the Pearl household because she had that whoever he was tied up in the basement.
That is true. I will say, I thought Pearl was. I was blown away by it.
Pearl is one of those movies. As you're watching it, you're thinking, "This is special. This is a really good movie." It doesn't take hindsight for you to come to that conclusion. Like
and it's
I was
beautifully
completely enraptured by it first viewing.
Yeah, I was tempted to go back and listen to what the two of you had discussed about it, and then I chose not to, just time wise. It's just, I mean, if anybody out there has not seen these two movies, obviously Maxxxine is the third in this trilogy, and Maxxxine is the character that survives at the end of X, going into Maxxxine. So X takes place in 1976 and
79.
79.
Yes, I think that you were mistaken because when you see the year come up, it's in the red, white, and blue.
Red, white, and blue.
But it's 79, not 76.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. But Maxxine's squarely 1985.
Yes. Yes, it is.
And the one thing I will say about this Ty West, who's very young, this guy was born in 1980, but I find this fascinating. And I'm actually, I can't wait to talk Maxxxine, but you can't without kind of bridging that gap and at least talking about these other two movies because they do play into it. Maybe not so much Pearl, but I think some of the stuff that Pearl sets up, and because Mia Goth is playing both of these characters, it does set up certain expectations that don't really follow.
Well, I would agree with that, but they are three completely different vibes. It's bringing up the personality islands from Inside Out. Never in any other way compare the two franchises, but it's like they are on their own islands, each of these three movies. I
actually have another comparison, which we'll get into. So Maxxxine is our main feature. And then we're going to, on the back end, cover the X from outer space, Guilala to all of his friends, or Space Chicken, or whatever you want to call him.
Yes, we have decided to call it Guilala.
Yeah, we got together in a meeting, and Guilala drew the short straw. So, but do you want to talk a little bit of news first, and then we will.
Let's talk it.
All right, let's go news. Mike Myers, Eddie Murphy, and Cameron Diaz have all officially announced that they will be returning to the swamp. We are getting Shrek 5. Are you excited? Are you thrilled? Are you shocked?
I think that lost its luster
nonplussed?
for me after. I think they should have done 3 and then cut it right there.
Well, there was 4.
There were 4, but I think I lost interest after 3.
Yeah, I'm going to say the first one came out in 2001. I was a brand new dad, stay-home dad, and Memorial Day weekend, I had to get out of the house. My wife was home, took care of the baby. I sat in a movie theater for 3 movies. I went in at like 9 o'clock showing for The Mummy Returns, then Shrek, and then Pearl Harbor, all in one day.
And by the time you were done, The Scorpion King had been released. So yes, able to watch that.
Well, I will say this, and I've mentioned this on the show, which is you never want to be a single guy, middle-aged guy.
But yet you movie, are, like pretty much.
In a kid's movie, opening weekend for Shrek. And I laughed my ass off probably harder than anybody. But I had a wide berth, like kids were running into the theater.
Like Robert De Niro in Cape Fear.
Yes, very much so, like that. Especially when the not the gumdrop buttons. So
you're elbowing the strange kid next to you.
No, parents were literally pulling their kids away from me, going, "Oh, we're gonna sit over." Exactly like Cape Fear. I'm sure in certain corners I'm probably still discussed. Remember that time we saw Shrek and that creepy guy was in there? So the last one, Shrek Forever After, was 2010. So this is being released July 1st, 2026. So you're talking 16 years in between the original 4 movies and then this follow-up. I've also read that Donkey is set to get his own spinoff movie. So Eddie Murphy is just going back through his catalog. And he's like, all right, what else have I done? Coming to America? Okay, let's do it. Beverly Hills Cop, Axel F. Okay.
48 Hours. He's never touched that.
Wasn't there another 48 Hours?
There was.
They did a sequel. Yeah,
You're
there was
right.
a sequel.
Trading Places. He has not touched that again.
That is true. Well, he better not get down to Pluto Nash, because then we're going to have some real issues. So speaking of this Beverly Hills Cop.
Did Nick Nolte turn into the Hulk in another 48 Hours? Or am I
I think you're mixing franchises right now. Eric Bana was not happy with him. Have you seen Axel F, which just dropped on Netflix
I
last
have
month?
not. I'm
going to tell you right now, we watched it and enjoyed the hell out of it. They go right back to the soundtrack. You got the Pointer Sisters going in there. You got Michael McDonald, all the original. What's funny is when you watch this movie, you realize it's basically the same premise as Coming to America, which is just he's got to deal with his estranged daughter, Axel. But there's not enough Judge Reinhold. Billy is kind of the MacGuffin in this whole thing. Billy's been taken hostage and he's got to come back and help him. And they even bring back Bronson Pinchot.
Oh, you got to bring back Bronson.
Serge. Mm-hmm. Oh my. So it was actually a lot of fun. But I did read afterwards, like he went out of his way to not do that stupid laugh.
So does he do it in the movie at all?
No, he doesn't. No. So, but it was fun. I enjoyed it immensely. I thought it was well done.
Oh, I'll have to check it out then.
Yeah. So, and of course, Michael Myers was on the red carpet for something in Entertainment Tonight. Basically got him to admit that there may or may not be a return of Austin Powers again.
No Love Guru sequel.
I hope not. It's just kind of weird the way that we are just mining all this old stuff. But it looks like this 2026 is going to be jammed with animated movies. We got Toy Story 5, Frozen 3, Super Mario Brothers 2, and the sequel to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle Mutant Mayhem are all set for 2026 releases. Wow. So,
and when is this the next Spider-Verse coming out?
They haven't said a word. They're like, dude, we're done.
That was supposed to come out the following year, wasn't it?
Yeah. I don't know. AI is quickly working on it, I'm sure. 2026. I did, in doing the research for this, I found out there is a Shrek themed Airbnb in Scotland, the Scottish Highlands. And so I looked it up. It's actually really cool looking, but it's a sweepstakes. It's not like you can actually rent it from Airbnb and just go there. It's like you have to enter for a chance to stay. And it's like a very limited window between October 27th and 29th, but it's the hollowed out tree and all the furniture looks like it's made out of wood, and outdoors looks like a swamp with the beware ogre signs and whatnot. So it looks kind of cool, but it only sleeps 3 and only guests over the age of 5. One of my kids 4 and love Shrek.
Only guests over the age of 5. That's like doing a great disservice to a large portion of the Shrek fan base.
Especially when you're pushing the 5th movie and you want a whole new generation.
Yeah, we're doing a B&B based on a beloved children's animated feature, but no children allowed.
Right. There's a couple Airbnbs that have done up their properties to look like the Barbie dream house, which is cool. I also think that there is there's a Flintstones themed one, and there is an X-Men 97 mansion.
Oh.
Which all the stuff looks like it's drawn as a cartoon, like all the props and whatever in the building. This sounds like it's a one and done. Like you win this sweepstakes, and then they're trying to raise money for this Hopscotch Children's Charity, which is a nonprofit for disadvantaged children in Scotland. So then open it up so more people can. So do you have to pay to get into the sweepstakes? How are you raising money? I mean, my kids are over 5, but only 3 of us can go. So now I got 2 children who we're going to fight over who gets to sleep in Donkey's bed.
Any dad that's trying to wake up his kid that's sleeping in Donkey's bed, Donkey. Yeah. Any dad's going to be doing the stupid voice the entire weekend. Oh, dads are like onions, layers. Oh, because you're stinky.
No, layers. So we're getting more Shrek. That's the whole point of this story. So speaking of all these animated movies, any guesses as to the highest grossing animated movie of all time? Sitting right now at $1.45 billion.
Of all time.
Yeah.
Inside Out 2.
That's well on its way. I actually think it's it's actually Frozen 2.
Frozen 2.
Yeah, which I don't even think I've ever seen.
No, neither have I.
I turned my nose up at Frozen for years until I finally sat and watched it with some young family members. I was like, all right, this is kind of cute. So if you just Google Shrek Airbnb, it should come up and jump on board, man. Got to be in it to win it, right? So that is all.
If you can get there, right, I doubt it includes.
Oh, that's the other thing. No,
right?
That's the other thing too, right? That's a good point. Vacationers need to organize their own travel to and from the Highlands, but your stay at the house is free. You just got to get there. Maxxxine.
Well, before we talk Maxxxine, we do have a loss. This episode to report. Shelley Duvall.
Yeah.
Our generation's olive oil. And should be every generation's olive oil. Perfect casting there.
Yes, indeed. Which we did cover. I think that was episode 300. That was the Green Slime episode. I believe that is episode 300. If you want to go back and check that out.
Popeye, we did. Yep. So yeah, Shelley Duvall passed, unfortunately, and of course, horror fans also know her as Wendy Torrance.
Oh, she is tormented no longer. She comes back as a ghost.
More so by Stanley Kubrick than Jack Torrance, by the way. But
yes,
that's another story.
Yeah, we've never covered that one. Yeah, it's unfortunate. Every episode we lose somebody.
She went out with Ringo Starr. Did you know that? She dated a Beatle.
What? No, I did not know that.
Before he married Barbara Bach.
Is that where he got the song Octopus's Garden? Because she was attacked by the octopus at the end of Popeye?
I would love to think that, but no.
Oh, my Ringo. Oh, Ringo. Oh. That octopus was having his way with her, by the way. All right. Are we going to 1985?
We are going to 1985.
Woo, 1985.
And let me just point out that I tend to complain about movies that are period pieces and that use a lot of music from those periods, but are not year specific.
Oh, no. Are you going to point out that there was a...
I don't have to with this movie. That's my point, is that it's spot on. So whoever was compiling the music did their homework.
Well, I will say, I think, and so we talked about this at the beginning. This Ty West this is now the third movie I've seen of his, and I am blown away that this man, don't get me wrong, I'm sure the cinematographer and the gaffer and all the other, crew around him helped make this look like a true 1985, Hollywood 1985. Including, like you said, the soundtrack. So we actually get a Frankie Goes to Hollywood, and it's not
relax.
It is actually Welcome to the Pleasure Dome, and I was thrilled.
Now, did you have that album? Because I did. I still have the vinyl of that.
Do you really?
Based on Two Tribes and Relax.
Okay.
One of my favorite songs on there, Welcome to the Pleasure Dome, the title track, I was overjoyed to hear it.
But yeah, that was a pleasure. So it's funny. I actually saw this posted on another thread, but somebody questioned, like, when you personally did the 80s that we see represented in these movies now, like when did the 80s become the 80s for you? Like where, you watch these movies and everyone's got the big hair and everyone's got the neon, almost like it's cliched. They're all, out in California, they're all wearing rollerblades, bright neon outfits. Big cell phones. Like you look back and you're like, all right, that was quintessential 80s. A lot of people were saying, all right, when MTV launched in 81.
I wouldn't say that because 81, I think, was still feeling the reverberations of the 70s. The 80s were trying to stake their own ground still. Any decade does in the first few years of the decade. Right. Because you look at the 70, 71, It's still got that 60s hangover to it. Yeah. I would say like the 80s, as we know it, or as popular culture knows them, started in 83, full force.
You personally, like
Me
83,
personally,
that
yeah.
was
82 would be like the transitional year between the 70s and 80s, really.
82 would have been Duran Duran Rio. So I want to say that to me, 85 is seminal in my life. I grew up upstate, a little remote. We were a little late in getting technology. I barely had cable, let alone MTV or any of this. I had 3 channels. And it wasn't until I went to college on Long Island and was exposed to new wave. I do remember walking around in the mall like that year, and there was somebody wearing the long scarf with the relaxed shirt. We just mentioned Frankie Goes to Hollywood. But yeah, it wasn't until it was later in the decade for me before it actually became the 80s.
I think that 1985 for me was the peak of the 80s. And then it slowly degenerated as the decade went on.
I'll go 85 to 87 or 88 because those were my college years, and they really kind of informed me and exposed me to stuff I had never been witness to.
Because I really love that whole new wave period of the 80s. And I think like the hair metal bands took over starting in like 86. You had Bon Jovi,
Bon
Slippery
Jovi,
When Wet.
Yep.
Yeah.
Ozzy Osbourne was right in there.
Then all of a sudden that whole wave of like Cinderella and Warrant and
so that's the kind of stuff I listened to in high school. Kiss, Lick It Up, and all that, and then when I go to college, and all of a sudden, it's Squeeze, and it's Sushi and the Banshees, and it's all these other bands I'd never even heard of. Erasure, which was a little bit later, but I think they one kind of push the other out. But if you listen to certain radio stations, then, and this was a nice mix. You mentioned a soundtrack on this before, and I thought there was some there. We get ZZ Top and Emotion. New Order.
They did a good job with the soundtrack on X as well, with some of those 70s,
yeah,
AOR tracks as we
I don't know if I picked up on that as much as this. I mean, so X and Pearl I watched at home. This I saw in the theater, obviously, because it's still in there. And Pearl, I want to say the expectations after watching Pearl, because it is such a different movie than what X was. And it's just weird, wacky, Technicolor, Wizard of Oz, Mary Poppins. Like there was a point. I don't want this to become a review of Pearl by any means, but like I wouldn't have been surprised if the animals started singing with her at one point, and I would have been on board for it. But I feel because she plays both these characters, going right from Pearl into watching Maxxxine, I had expectations of where this was going, and it did not go that way, but I think that's a good thing.
I had like preconceived notions about this as well. Like
because the trailer kind of, you get this impression. All right, so we're going into this 1985. We mentioned it at the end of last episode, almost like these Body Double or Avenging Angel, any of these kind of like dirty, gritty, straight to VHS movies
from the 80s. It should be pointed out. So this movie really is in its time period. It could have been released in 1985 or 1986.
Which is fantastic, because I'm like, all right, they had to have gone back and used the equipment for the time. This is the way that this guy is operating based on these 2 movies I'm seeing now.
Yeah, some of the footage that you see in here, it suddenly switches to video on a number of occasions in here.
Well, VHS plays a big part in this.
Think about it. In the 80s, VHS was like our social media.
Absolutely.
That was the closest we had to it.
Yeah, I agree. No,
I thought MTV.
Listen,
but
again, I came right out of school in 85 and went working. My first job was Madison Avenue on 34th and Madison, late 88, 89. And that was before Times Square was cleaned up. And so it looked like this. I mean, yes, this takes place in Hollywood Boulevard, but this is what Times Square looked like. It was a cesspool. There were peep shows, and I don't know if you ever walked into one of those, but they are disgusting. You don't.
I can't say that I have, but I can say this: having visited Hollywood Boulevard in the last 5 years, it still is pretty
Is
bad.
it really?
So
Is it
yeah,
really?
I don't think
Do
that
you
that's
still
been
get
cleaned up at all.
prostitutes? Really?
Well, I didn't walk the streets at night,
Okay.
but
No, you know,
there were all those
honey,
all
I'm
those
going out. Going
all
out.
those characters that you see, like those really janky, like Mickey Mouse and whatever. They really accost you. They're not
Oh, they want you
nice,
to.
you know.
Well, they are in Times Square as well. You can get a mean spirited Elmo who wants more than to be tickled. No, they want your money. So, but yeah, no, I thought the cinematographer and I guess the gaffer gets a lot of credit for this. Elliot Rocket and Ross Dunkley really went out of their way. They used like old school tungsten lights to kind of create that feel and look of how things were shot back in the day, but they tinkered on the back end. It's all high tech digital stuff that they reconfigured to make it look like it came right out of a VHS video store from 1985. It has atmosphere, and that's fantastic.
The background of Maxxxine is based on real historical events, meaning the Night Stalker, and the opening montage of all
We lived through this.
the Tipper Gore inspired
sure.
panic that popular culture, MTV music,
Those
was
opening vignettes
corrupting.
were fantastic.
And hearing Dee Snider's narration over, it's basically what it amounted to, was narration. From Dee
And
Snider.
this was what brought about the parental advisory label.
Yeah,
You know, all of a sudden you couldn't get NWA album without mom's consent.
well, I don't know if anybody actually stopped you from buying it. It just had that sticker on it, warning.
Big black and white. I think the Night Stalker stuff is a weird misdirect.
You're led to believe, although if you've seen if you've seen X, you know exactly who that guy with the black gloves is from the get-go.
I will tell you, if you pay attention, it's spelled out for you right there up front, because you know what happened. So this is a character that survived. This is I had this epiphany last night, and I had to cut, and I'm like, X is Alien, Maxxxine is Ripley, where it's an ensemble piece. They have to fight for their life. She survives. Now, Maxxxine, which is Aliens, she is dealing with the trauma of that experience, and yet it is still following her. And it kind of, especially when you were just, intimating, who this bad guy really is, which kind of made her what she is. I don't know. I just got this weird analogy that he, this character is in fact Ripley in these two movies.
I think that's apt.
I could be off base, but
I think that's apt. Yeah, but just going back to, again, just talking about Pearl briefly, and how you said that the animals could have started singing to her, and it wouldn't have been out of place in that movie. I'm thinking of that great freeze frame shot over the title Pearl of the
alligator,
of Theta, the alligator coming out of the water, and the lush music.
Yeah, well, even the title optics, the graphics, the logo design, everything about it is just screams Pollyanna Disney, the Technicolor, with this really weird undertone of this poor character, and you feel for this character.
Yes, and I would go as far to say as Pearl is a more likable character than Maxxxine.
Yes. Oh, I agree. She's more sympathetic. But I said, watching Pearl going into this, like, you feel like, all right, Maxxxine is like, I'm going to do whatever it takes to become a star. I want to be a star. She basically was saying, she was mimicking the same thing that Pearl was saying. Unfortunately, Pearl never made it off the farm. Maxxxine now has an opportunity, and you feel, because again, it's the same actress playing both of these roles, that you're like, all right, is she going to kill her way to the top? Is this what we're doing here? And it's not. It's not. She is haunted by what happened in X. She is stalked by this old lady in her dreams, in her waking reality. She is constantly barraged with this vision of this old lady. And I will say, and I mentioned it last episode as well, the scene in X where she's laying in bed and the old lady crawls into bed next to her is the most horrific thing I've ever seen on film.
But I think that you have a point, though, when you said that X gave you tourist trap vibes, because I think Ty West must have seen that. And I think that he was injecting some of that stuff in there, because if you remember, I don't know if you've blocked it from your memory, but in tourist
I can't get it out now.
there's the Chuck Connors is the bad guy, the crazy guy, right?
Yeah.
So he's playing a dual role of, good cop, bad cop, or good crazy, really bad crazy.
Right.
And so the kids in Tourist Trap, which includes Tanya Roberts, are in this little wax museum, and he tells them not to go into the house. In X, they're in this barn and they're to stay away from the house. So there's all these visceral, things
Parallels.
that also reminded me of it, but I think on a more subconscious level. And you actually brought it to my attention. Yeah, I am thinking the same thing. And obviously, Tourist Trap is a very disturbing movie, and X in its own way is a disturbing movie, even though it's got a lot of moments of levity. All horror movies, for the most part, have that these days, just to kind of break up the tension. But there is tension in X.
Yes.
And even though I didn't like it as much as I did Pearl after I saw Pearl, I will still say that as a slasher, X is very artfully made. And it's head and shoulders above most of the horror films that you're going to see out there.
But I think that's the genius of this guy, which is he's taking all these things that he's been exposed to. It's like George Lucas. I watch these serials and Flash Gordon and all this. I'm taking all this stuff that I absorbed as a kid, but I'm taking this specific genre and I'm reworking it. So like you said, he probably did lean into Tourist Trap. Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
There's a reference to Texas Chainsaw in Maxxine where she's sent the newspaper clipping and it said Texas Porn Star Massacre.
Yes, you're right. Yeah. So.
But let's get back to the beginning of Maxxine. So you're given a quote by Betty Davis up front.
Yeah, this is interesting. You get bookended Betty Davis references.
Yeah. Until you're known in my profession as a monster, you're not a star.
So this is what sets me up that she is going to do whatever it takes to become a star,
no matter what. Now,
yeah,
I didn't want to bring this up, but I am because because it's apropos. I don't know if you've read the story about the extra who is disgruntled because he says he was mistreated on the set of Maxxine.
I did see something about that, but I didn't do any research beyond it.
If this were true, maybe she's a character. I'll give her that.
But I mean, these Christian Bales of the world that act method and go off on people, somehow that's acceptable. But am I the only one that just watches like dead bodies to see if I could see them breathing?
I think they may have cut him out because I was looking for something like that.
It could have been a lot worse. She could have just stepped on his junk like she did the other guy in the hallway. I mean,
I wasn't expecting that. That was
no.
Talk about a vision that's burned into my brain. So if you're not a monster, you're not a star. We get right up front that Maxxine, as you said, is going to do whatever it takes in this movie and then in her career.
Is Betty Davis like a notorious evil, like on all I think of when I say her name is Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. It's on purpose that she was a horrible person to deal with on set. And we actually end the movie with Kim Carnes' Betty Davis Eyes, which is a song that I never liked. And yet it stuck in my head for 3 days after the damn movie.
You couldn't get away from it. I didn't like it that much either.
No.
But yet you couldn't escape it.
I never knew what a pro blush
or 81
was. I'm like, what the hell's a pro blush? I'm like, oh, a pro blush. I for years did not know what that line was. But we're introduced to her going in for a casting call. She's in the porn industry, but she is trying to segue into actual movies.
And she's become famous in the porn industry.
Right.
Because multiple male characters say, "Oh, I love your work," when they see her.
And they're like, "Oh, we see here you're a porn actress." And she's very dismissive of all this. I've got bigger and better things coming.
But immediately you're reminded of Pearl, like the audition that went terribly wrong.
But there are lines that she utters that could have come right out of Pearl's mouth. There's a lot of parallels. And that's what I'm saying, which is watching these almost back to back. You can't help separating because it's the same actress. And I get it. She's playing two different characters, but they're basically the same age at this point. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Although they do successfully make Mia Goth look a little bit worn, compared to what she looked like in X, because 6 years have gone by.
But you also see that those events of X like I said, haunt her. She is a troubled soul.
And I have to also point out, because we haven't talked about it yet, is the little 1959 home movie of Maxxxine that's shown at the very beginning of the movie.
Oh, well, that's all. Yeah, you mentioned before that, it's no real shock who the main antagonist is and who's really doing all these killings. And it's right there. It's right there. We saw it at the end of X. And you have to say to yourself, all right, well, who survived in X? Who even knows what happened? She literally ran over Pearl, the old lady Pearl's head, and escaped in a car.
And left the movie behind, which has her in it. So that's a huge plot hole. That is a huge plot hole.
There's a couple, because I said the same thing. How did he get a hold of this movie? And
how does nobody know that it was her?
That would be police evidence.
She's a famous porn actress.
Right.
And the police never have,
and they all knew,
caught up
they
with
all
her
know
about
the
this.
Story. She had to have been, they knew the story.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yet somehow, all right, well, you're the only one survived. How'd that happen? I don't know what happened to that old lady. I don't know. It wasn't me. Oh, okay, you can go.
Or if they even ever questioned her, because it sounds like that's still just an open case. Then nobody knows what happened. But yet there she is, plain as day in the movie.
Except for this guy who runs around in who was the bad guy in Roger Rabbit with the big rubber gloves? Doc Brown.
Doom.
Oh, yeah.
Judge Doom.
Judge Doom. I'm like, this guy was smart to wear rubber gloves because, as I mentioned before, those peep show parlors are disgusting. You don't want to touch anything.
So for the uninitiated, because it is said that, yes, you can watch any of these three movies without having seen the others, although you're not going to get all the subtext. I would think that the only people that don't have an idea who this Black Glove character is would be people who haven't seen X or Pearl.
I don't recommend watching this movie unless you watch X.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't
see why you'd want to. I don't see why you'd want to if you haven't seen it.
You don't need to watch Pearl.
Oh no, you do need to watch Pearl just to expand your cinematic base.
I agree. I thought Pearl was phenomenal. I was blown away by it. It is so outside of my comfort zone, and yet I couldn't look away. But I think if you're going to watch Maxxxine on its own, you don't need to watch Pearl to understand what happened to her. If anything, like I said, if anything, it kind of confuses stuff a little bit because it is the same actress playing both of these roles.
Yeah, but Pearl, it does reward you if you have seen Pearl, because there are Easter eggs in Maxxxine that refer back to Pearl. Again, talking about this home movie, the little Maxxxine does the same dance that Pearl does during her audition, which I thought was a nice.
And there's a little scene where she's on Hollywood Boulevard and she crushes out her cigarette on the Theta Bara star, who Pearl named the alligator after.
Right. Yeah. So,
but again, it doesn't advance the plot in any way, shape, or form. It's just a fun little Easter egg. But I just thought the world building in this is 1985.
Oh, it is.
From the billboards, from the outfits and the cars. And I did read they filmed as much as humanly possible on Hollywood Boulevard. We get extensive shots, action sequences in Universal Backlot. Which was,
please, the Bates Hotel?
The Bates Hotel and the Psycho House play large in this. And I thought this was fantastic. At one point, Kevin Bacon's character is chasing her out of the damn courthouse from Back to the Future. I'm like, there's Marty McFly. He came back.
But before we get there, can we talk about Buster Keaton and how she busts his unmentionables?
This is a horrific scene.
So the guy was Buster Keaton. Am I not mistaken? He was.
I believe that was correct. Right.
So, okay. Plot hole number one. Okay. Why is she walking down a dark alley when the Night Stalker is about? First of all,
see, this is why this is the only reason that I think that they bring in the Night Stalker, which doesn't pay off other than to make these characters concerned about walking around at night.
I think, though, it's just like a general background of uneasiness, like that sets.
I just think that even if there wasn't somebody killing somebody, there wasn't a mass killer. Just walking around Hollywood Boulevard is enough to keep you on your edge. But you're right. She ends up. So her two friends go out. Oh, we're going to the Hollywood Hills. We're going to a party. You want to come with us? Nope. I got another job. I got to go home. I got money to make. I'm trying to get this role.
And by the way, in a movie like this, going to a party in the Hollywood Hills never ends well.
Right. And they all go. I got candy. All right. Well, Hollywood Hills, here we come.
Maxxine finds herself walking down on purpose a dark alley. It's not like she's being chased. She just decides to take a shortcut.
Yeah.
And then one of these characters that takes pictures with people, who is dressed up as Buster Keaton, follows her into the alley, and he's got a knife, and his intentions are not good.
To your point, it would have been funnier if it was Elmo.
And she can't get out of the alley because it's fenced off. So now she's between a fence and Buster Keaton with a knife. But we've seen previously that she is packing. Yeah. So she takes out the gun, and suddenly she's the aggressor. And how aggressive she is. She makes him suck the gun, makes him strip, makes him lie face down. And, ooh, man.
She makes jelly out of the kibbles and bits.
She stomps on some cojones.
Oh, that had to have been just like a rubber aesthetic or a prosthetic.
No, I think it was the guys. I think that was the extra. I think that was the extra. Yeah, and she called him a big baby afterwards.
There are ants all over my crotch.
Oh yeah, how about this?
Oh yeah, here I got your raid right here. Yeah. So again, this kind of sets you up that she's going to do whatever it is. She's not messing around. She's got the killing instinct. We saw it in X. She did what she had to do in order to get out of that situation.
So I'm just wondering if this is like a normal Tuesday night for her on Hollywood Boulevard.
Could be. I don't know.
That's why she's packing, right?
Yeah. Every day.
Yeah. So then it sets up her best friend character, who's probably the most sympathetic character in this movie.
Yes.
The video store clerk, Leon.
Yeah. Yes, and he's a nice character. He's a fun character.
Yeah, he's the horror movie aficionado.
He's like her Q. You know, she comes to him and he's like, "Hey, can you find this movie, or do you know any?" I'll look into it. All right. Hey, somebody mails her a tape, a VHS tape, which is the porn movie that they filmed from the first.
So it's a platonic relationship. They're not boyfriend, girlfriend. So they're watching The Puritan, and she is up for the part in the sequel. So they're doing their research, right, for her. Yeah. And so he's fallen asleep on the couch, and there's a knock on the door. She opens it, and somebody's left her a package, and it's a videotape. Puts it in, and the first thing she sees is police evidence. So the police have her on film in regards to these killings.
Yeah, they put her at the crime scene. Let's put that out there. Yes.
Yeah, because Maxxine later on says there's nothing to tie me to those murders. Well, yeah, there is.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of evidence. I'm sure your DNA was all over that place. Maybe I guess DNA was not quite so.
No, but the next best thing, they got her on tape right there.
So she has him try and find out where the tape came from. It's like we all had VHS copy to copy, but you're right, because where did this person get this copy? Yeah.
And how is this person the only one who knows who she is and the police don't?
Well, but we've also this was after we were introduced to Labatt, which is Kevin Bacon's character.
Yes. So a private investigator hired by another mysterious character.
Yeah,
to keep
high
tabs.
ranking, because at one point he says, "Okay, sir, you're well known in this industry, and I'm gonna do whatever you want me to do." Kind of a thing. He is an absolute scumbag, and I will say, Kevin Bacon, the last couple movies he's been in, he has played douchebags, and I love it. Was that Leave the World Behind with Julia Roberts? He played. I
still haven't seen that.
Oh, dude, I highly recommend that you watch that movie. There's big leaps of logic in that as well, but he plays kind of like this outlier survivalist. But he also plays a bad cop in Beverly Hills Cop Axel F.
Oh, does he really?
Yeah. And from the beginning, he's crooked. He's not a good cop. But here, he is a scumbag.
You know what this would have paired good with? The Big Picture. Maxxine, The Big Picture.
Wow, yeah. Too bad we already jumped on that. What episode was that? Oh, that was Fall Guy.
That was the Fall Guy episode.
Yeah, go back and listen to the Fall Guy. It wasn't that long ago.
It's not long after we're introduced to Kevin Bacon's character as they fish Maxxine's two friends out of the pond in the Hollywood cemetery. So these are the two that said they were going to this Hollywood party, and it did not end up.
One of these girls get tops billing on the poster. Halsey?
Halsey. Yeah.
Is she a model?
She's the singer that's
Well,
trying to make the transition, but
all right. Well,
yeah.
okay.
So obviously the police are thinking that this is tied in some way to the Night Stalker killings.
I love these two detectives. This is about as close as you get to comic relief.
Torres and Williams, so played by Bobby Cannavale and Michelle Moynihan.
And Cannavale, I'm like, where have I seen this guy before?
He's in like everything, this guy.
But he's great. And, you know, he's trying to do the good cop, bad cop. His partner wants none of it. You're just a failed actor, you know, who's now a cop. So, but they realize pretty quickly how they figure out that she's the last to have seen them.
Maxxxine is the logical tie between the two because she knows both of them. But again, they don't seem to have any knowledge of what happened in X. So the police are just still dumbfounded.
Yeah, they're not tying anything together, right? It's just like, no, just this random girl living on the street here. And she gets the part. And this is where we're introduced to Giancarlo Esposito, who is her agent. At first, I couldn't get past the hairpiece. But I'm like, all right, I guess in 1985, you probably would have had a really bad toupee if you were going bald. But I like his character.
I would have liked to have seen Martin Short play her Hollywood agent.
That would have been fantastic. I did have a note at the end of this whole thing that it was a really big missed opportunity that Merv Griffin was not the killer. Her friend, Leon, gets killed in the video store. Horrifically, by the way.
Terrible. I've never seen anybody slashed on the back of their neck before. Yeah.
It's like, where's people not
and you see his vertebrae after. Oh, it was terrible. Yeah. It was terrible.
Yeah. Yeah.
And also you get a glimpse that the killings of these two girls were filmed. So
yeah, like you said, there's moments in this where it cuts back to a grainy VHS viewpoint of somebody with a JVC camera, videotaping, them being tortured and whatnot. And at the very beginning, after she auditions, and she nails it, by the way, this scene this read she does for them is phenomenal. She gets the part.
During the midsection of the movie is pretty much a cat and mouse between Kevin Bacon's character and Maxxxine. They have a meet in a hotel. My employer is a very powerful person. Yep. He wants you to come to this address. And then a little bit later on, as we were saying, he chases her through the Universal lot, through all these set pieces, because the director of the movie that she's got, played by Elizabeth Debicki, who's very scary as the director of the...
I liked her. And even now, female directors have to bend over backwards to prove their worth. But back in 85, it had to have been even worse. And she's like, listen, we got to kind of stick together here.
And she's given Maxxxine every chance in the world because it's obvious that Maxxxine does not have her head in the game when she shows up on set. And as they're going around in the golf cart, as you said, they roll up to the Bates Motel and they look up at the Bates house and she sees Pearl in the window, just like Norman would see, or you'd see Norman dressed up as his mother in the window, which is a great callback to Psycho, not only having the Bates Motel there, but a little bit later on, Kevin Bacon shows up, and I'm not sure what his end game was, to physically take her back to her father.
Yeah, like he's intimidating the hell out of her, but I mean, I don't know, does he know that his client is killing all these people?
I don't know.
Yeah.
But the great thing about him is another callback to another movie is that after Maxxxine just brutalizes him with...
This is outside of the crotch stomping scene. This is horrific because she takes that ball of keys and she puts them through her fingers, Wolverine style, and just beats the crap out of him as he's sitting in his car.
Because he's been following her since the hotel meeting.
Yeah, he's harassing her. So he deserved to be killed. Right?
From that point on, when you see him, his face is bandaged up, and he looks just like Jack Nicholson in Chinatown.
Yeah. Oh, good call on that. Yeah, you're right. So they're all There's a lot of these little nice little callbacks. This actually takes like multiple viewings.
So I was convinced when she runs up the steps and enters the Bates house that she was going to end up going up the stairs and slashing him from the top. And just like in Psycho, he was going to teeter and fall down the stairs. But brilliantly, when she goes in the house, it's just a facade.
Because
there's nothing
I've
in
actually
there.
You've seen pictures from the back. It is just a facade. It's not a full house.
Yeah.
So it's actually very small when you see it in person. I was there in 1990, Universal backlot. They did the tram tours.
Yep. Yeah.
And
I've been on that as well. Yeah.
So I just saw a video this morning of somebody shot from the Jaws ride at Universal from 1990. So I'm like, yep, I was there, scalded my leg. So stuff like this is fun. It's like a movie in a movie kind of a thing. It's like, you know, she's just trying to get her head in the game so she can make this movie. And every time she turns around, her past is haunting her.
Alas, Kevin Bacon is not to see the end of the movie Maxxxine, because Maxxine's agent is well connected himself. So he's like, why didn't you come to me about this immediately?
I'll take care of it. Yeah,
I'll take care of it.
I got this. Yeah.
And
so you know, like when you cook bacon and it all shrivels up, he was pretty flat by the end of this one.
And I'm thinking, right? So Maxxine's agent, Giancarlo Esposito, puts Kevin Bacon in his car in a compactor.
Yeah.
Just like crushes Christine at the end of Christine. So I'm thinking that they are just going to compact it just enough until he
just
tells
enough to scare the crap out of him. Yeah.
Or he tells them who his employer is. No, they want to kill him, and they do. Yeah, so they just keep crushing until the lapdogs come and lick up the blood that's leaking out of the crushed car.
There's a couple chunks in there as well. Yeah, that's a lot of blood. So no more Kevin Bacon.
But in the meantime, Maxxine puts it together herself because she fishes out of the garbage the invite or the address.
This is what Labatt, Kevin Bacon's character, hands her. That it's an envelope with an address, and then, like you said, when she opens it, it is the newspaper clipping of the events that took place at the
Texas porn star massacre.
Yep. I know what you did. I know what you did last summer. Someone's out to get you. Who could it be?
So she figures she's going to take matters in hand herself, and goes to this address.
And so these detectives are just following her. They somehow think that she's connected to all this, but they don't take her in. They just follow her. All right, there's something fishy about this kid, and we got to just keep an eye on her. So the one thing I will say, which is she comes, and so there's this beautiful house underneath the Hollywood sign. And in reality, I don't think there's anything there. I think that's where Mulholland Drive is. I don't know. I've never been that close to the signs, but she has to get in this. It's this trolley car that goes up the side of the mountain that takes her to the house. Do you know what these are called? Funiculars. I've never heard of that in my life.
Well, there was something very similar in John Wick 4.
Well, that's true. Yeah, but I just thought it was a funicular, and I'm like, it's kind of fun. So she's got to go. So she goes to this house. We immediately recognize the doors from the video shot of the two girls getting killed. The two big doors,
and you can hear playing on the other side of these doors the same home movie that you see at the beginning of the movie. So you're like, whoever, I was right. This is who I thought it was.
Because there's no one else. We've never been introduced to anybody else that knows what's going on.
Yeah.
So you're like, who else could this be but Daddy?
And as you said, the end of X gives you the big reveal that this preacher that you've been seeing on TV throughout the movie is in actuality her father.
Yeah. And they bring that home in the opening sequence of this movie, reminding you, don't forget this. This is very important.
So he's pretty much a glorified Tipper Gore, is this character. Hollywood stole you from me. I'm here to shed light on the evils of Hollywood. And I'm killing prostitutes. I'm killing prostitutes to make my point. But he's making a documentary, and he's got like cult members all around him, and he suggests that they've all lost children to Hollywood as well.
So go back to the very opening scene where you are introduced to Maxxxine walking on the set to go and audition. These people are all in the background protesting this
same movie. People, the same one guy with the beard that you keep seeing.
So all these people are you're led to believe all these people are parents who have lost kids to the streets of Hollywood. and this guy has indoctrinated them. He has weaponized them. This was before she got the part. So is this like a long game? Was it just luck that she got the part? So now he's like, oh, now I can start killing these people and make my point.
Well, he's probably followed her to Hollywood, and, he's got his own agenda, and it's all come together in one glorious sicko stew for this guy after he realizes that, his daughter's mixed up in more than he initially thought. So
not only do you question how he got his hands on the videotape, but you're like, all right, I guess this is a long game, that he's brought all these people for the sake that at some point we're going to catch my daughter. Did he rent that house? Did he own that house?
Yeah. And you can only assume that it was Kevin Bacon, being the private detective, that somehow got his hands on the videotape.
Probably. Yeah. There's a lot of unanswered questions, which is fine. This is where it falls apart for me. The third act falls apart.
It's revealed that not only do the two, the stripper and the prostitute, were killed by Daddy, but also the previous actress from The Puritan Part 1, played by Lily Collins here, Phil Collins' daughter.
I didn't know that.
Is dismembered in a suitcase, which is
which gets knocked over. She's got parts all over Susu Studio right down the stairs. Huh? So this guy's done more damage than she has. You holy righteous piece of S.
She gets knocked out in the struggle with Daddy, wakes up, she's tied to a palm tree on the patio right next to the swimming pool of this gorgeous house.
Like an altar, all of a sudden. It's like,
and, it looks like the Devil's Reign, like John Travolta and Ernest Borgnine are going to be in these hooded things and reveal themselves. But so I don't know, were they going to sacrifice her? He was performing an exorcism, right? So he didn't mean to kill her.
Yeah,
he just wanted her to
demons.
He wanted her to repent, and that was going to be the big climax of the movie.
This is why we go to therapy. You don't exercise your demons. You're going too far, Dad.
Yeah.
So, but our intrepid detectives have followed her up there, and I'm like, boy, they better have called for backup. Otherwise, they are the worst detectives in the world. and all of a sudden, gunfight breaks out. These guys got shotguns underneath their robes. Half of them are videotaping it. It just becomes over the top.
Which the 80s were.
See that? All right. I agree with you, because my initial reaction was, all right, you have completely lost me in this third act. It is now ridiculous. And there's a scene at the end of this leading into the coda that she should be in jail for the rest of her life. But I concede the point that this is how 80s movies play out. 80s movies, it's all about vengeance, it's all about retribution.
Yeah, she's Charlie Bronson right here in this scene, right?
Because
and no court would, as most 80s movies like revenge flicks would say, no court would convict her. So
we have this, it almost borders on North by Northwest, where you have this huge standoff underneath the Hollywood sign, which they couldn't film. They couldn't film. They had to recreate it in Santa Clara. But off screen, our detective Bobby Cannavale gets shot and he ends up dying. The other detective is shot, but they take down Daddy.
Well, no, she gets the cross in the eye. I don't know.
Oh, that's true. Oh, you're right. She did get the cross in the eye. Yeah, but I got him as she tumbled down the mountain. So Daddy's shot. He's laying on the ground and he's telling her he did it all for her. And she gives this speech that, you made me who I am. You did this. I am who I am because of you. And so there's a helicopter over her and they call her by name. Maxxxine, put the gun down. She's got a shotgun on his face and she just unloads and blows his head off.
Same thing happens in 7, but Brad Pitt went to jail.
Well, right. That they should have those police would have opened fire and killed her in a heartbeat. You just shot that guy. No,
and not only did she shoot him, his head is obliterated.
Right. I feel like he had to outdo himself with the old lady's head exploding.
There was there was audible gasps in my audience during the head explosion. Like, oh,
yeah, no, it is horrific, and it's all practical as far as I can tell.
You're not supposed to think of that, though, right? It's like, okay, that's cathartic. I'm happy.
No. And then next thing you know, we're in front of Grom's Chinese theater and she's at the premiere of Puritan 2.
And she's also got a deal to tell her own story. And she's going to use the same director, Elizabeth Debicki.
Yeah. Are you going to leave out the parts where you killed all the people?
No, those are the best parts. I hope not.
I know.
Those are the best parts.
Yeah. So, yeah, she gets what she wants. And the overriding theme of this whole thing, and it's her mantra that's repeated numerous times. I will not accept a life I do not deserve. And she actually makes her father repeat that before she blows his head off.
Because he came up with it. He came up with it. He tells her to repeat it slowly in that whole movie.
Which is fine. I think we all should aspire to that, but not by killing people. I draw the line at killing people. How's that?
But it's interesting because you don't see, like, as it's happening when her father is shot, it cuts off what she does to him. Then they fast forward to Grauman's Chinese Theater and you assume, okay, he's in custody or something because you didn't see her kill him. And then it flashes back to what she actually did. And it's egregious. It is very egregious.
Yeah. But again, in line with 80s revenge flicks.
Yeah. And she's unrepentant. I find this interesting. She's still doing coke at the end, but this time with her SAG.
Oh my, I forgot to write that in my notes, but originally it was like, it was like a I don't know what kind of coupon card or whatever she had. And she had like $1 bill. And now she's snorting with, $1,000 bill and her SAG card.
Yep. She's hit the big time, in other words.
She has.
You're an effing movie star, just like she said in X in the mirror.
But you're right. Pearl is a more likable character. There's not really much redeemable about this character. She has no remorse. She's haunted by what happened, but it's not enough to make her change her ways. And
there's a weird scene, like at the very end here, where they're on set, but they're saying, let's have a moment of remorse and then there's an actual you're silent for like 10 seconds.
Yeah, you're waiting for someone to snicker. Yeah, that was an odd choice.
Yeah,
that was a weird, like, all right, we're acknowledging that this person was killed, but showbiz gotta go on. The show must go on.
And it's a great shot. It is a great shot as the credits roll to the fake head that's on. So she at least got it together enough to get that cast made eventually and to get that fake head.
So we didn't talk about that, which is right. They bring her in with the special effects to put the silicone over her head to create a latex face that they can create the fake head. You got to put straws up your nose or something.
Yeah, it's like, because the girl says, keep breathing.
Your breath for 10 minutes?
No, the girl says, keep breathing. I'm like, how?
Yeah, how? And of course, she goes in full on panic mode. No, yeah, that was kind of bizarre.
But what's funny is obviously Mia Goth played Old Lady Pearl. But when she has that big, all the goop on her head, she looks
like Pearl, the Old Lady Pearl. Yeah, but the drippy, gooey. Yeah, I cannot say enough good things about this director. I'm on board, man. What do you got next?
Yeah.
Because these are fun. It's not fun in the sense that, I mean, there's horrific stuff going on, but he's got something to say. And watching this stuff in kind of a new light. Because, like you said, X is 70s exploitation kind of hard. Pearl is a weird 1920s Disney-fied,
like a fantasy horror movie.
But it's actually in a lot of ways it's more horrific than either one of these movies. But this is a solid entry into, if you want to call it the X-verse or whatever it is.
Yeah, and it just goes to show how well regarded the first two movies are in the industry, because just look at all the cameos, not even cameos. Look at all the big actors that are in Maxxxine that wanted to work with Ty West, most likely because of what he did with X and Pearl.
Sure, and Pearl, yeah.
This is like a Hollywood-based movie. You need that. Having Kevin Bacon in there didn't take me out of the movie.
No, not at all. If anything, I loved seeing him do this type of stuff.
Yeah.
Because he is chewing up the scenery, but he's not overshadowing what's going on. He is just a despicable character. And it is, I mentioned, I think it was Avenging Angel, where it was like the lovely prostitute off the street or whatever. And there was the bad guy was Ramrod, was like, one of the, not the John, but he was probably like the pimp. And I remember that specific. And he was just a piece of crap. And that's what this guy is. He's an unrepenting piece of crap. He knows what he's doing is ghoulish, but it doesn't matter. It's a paycheck. So he paid the price.
Oh, yes, he did.
Yeah.
They're still trying to separate him from his car.
Yeah, how do you can't clean that out. At this point, you got to just mush that up into a big cube and just tuck it in the back alley somewhere.
And shoot it into space, just like Guilala.
Into space. Guilala, want to eat bacon, must eat bacon. So I have one last request before we leave Maxxxine. Jim, can you show us your breasts?
Sure.
And they didn't even go that route. I mean, she shows the audition table, but we don't see it, which is fine.
Mainstream, quote unquote, Hollywood is not so different than the porn industry.
Nope, not at all.
You're selling something.
Yes.
So as we've established, Maxxxine is its own thing, just like Pearl was its own thing, just like X is its own thing. So I don't know if it's fair to compare any of them to each other because they're totally different eras and they just nail.
No, but right, they are completely different movies, but they are part of a trilogy.
As I was going into the theater last night, people coming out, and without them expressly saying it, there was a group of probably 5 or 6 20-year-olds coming out discussing what they just saw. And I'm assuming
I can't believe Vader is Luke's father. Shut up. Don't talk on
I only assumed that they were talking about Maxxxine because he was saying, well, the first one was really intense. Gotcha. He's like, the first one was intense. The second one, not so much. This, I don't know, because they were doing that. And I'm like, is there any other movie that there's 3 of them? No, I think he's talking about Maxxxine.
Unless Despicable Me 4, maybe.
So it sounded like this guy in his experience was disappointed in it. So,
but you're implying he's a younger person.
Yes, I'm thinking that you can't watch it like that because especially if you see something like Pearl Like Me and you think it's like a high point of cinema because it is.
Yeah.
Don't expect that again, and you're just doing yourself a disservice if you do.
Yes.
And this is a different thing. Again, I think it is a love letter to those 80s films.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're going to say Angel again for the 10th time because that's, you know, the most obvious one. Plot holes, yes. I could have done with a little less of the religious imagery and did they really need the cross in the eye? You know that?
No, because you don't see it happen. It's just it's a jump scare because you got nothing else going on here at the end. I'm
going to go buckets wise for Maxxxine 3 3/4. Better than 99.9% of the horror movies that you're going to see out there. Yeah. Ty West just does the 80s a service. Yeah. He gets the music right, which is just
huge for you, right?
It's huge. That deserves 1 bucket in itself to get the music right. Mia Goth again knocks it out of the park.
She is amazing. Yeah. She is. The camera really does love her.
Have you come to terms with what side of her face the freckles are on?
Yeah, because I think what happened was the scene that I saw in the trailer is her looking in a mirror.
Yeah.
So it's flopped. Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. 3 3/4 for this.
Okay.
Although if you want me to backtrack a little bit, Pearl is 4 1/4. Pearl is, like you said, it is something very special. It is unlike anything I have witnessed. And I'm sorry it took this long, but maybe if Maxxxine had never come along and we never decided to cover it, I probably would have never seen it. X3. I don't like that genre, so to speak. I get where he's going, and I completely appreciate the homage to those type of movies. Together, I mean, it's solid. It really is solid. It's Maxxxine. I enjoyed it. It did fall apart the last third of the movie for me. But again, I think that's on purpose. I think that is, he literally is looking at the structure of these movies, these revenge flicks, and how they play out.
So if you want to go back and listen to our Pearl and X episode, it is episode 252. So you can listen to these back to back, this one, and then go back in time.
Wow, it's almost 100 episodes ago.
Yeah, I know. October 2022, we talked that.
There you go.
Stuff.
We're on Apple Podcast, or you can just go to TMI confessionalspodcast.com, where we have a link to all of our episodes.
Yeah. Are we ready to leave, Maxxine?
I think so. I think we've exhausted this. I will just leave this, which is I cannot wait to see what Mr. West has next.
I read that he has an idea for a 4th movie in this series. I don't know if that would be advisable.
What genre is he going to skewer now? Well, I mean, we do leave it wide open.
Did you stay until the credits rolled?
The only thing I saw was as the camera panned up over the Hollywood Hills, Maxxxine is spelled out in the Hollywood sign.
Right. Well, if you stay all the way to the end, you do get a Be Kind Rewind big smiley face.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I did not see that.
Then like just as if a videotape would cut out, like you get a bunch of interference
Flickering.
and then it's done.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, they went all in on the VHS theme, huh?
They did. Okay, so we're going all in on the X theme, even with our concession this week.
X-Men?
No. Well,
Ex-wife?
unless you can actually eat an X-Man.
We're going concessional treats.
We're going concession.
Twix with an X.
Twix with an X.
I thought based on the UFO in the next movie, you were just going to go Hot Pockets.
Nope.
Twix. All right, good call. I like it.
And
Let's
unbelievably, we have not talked Twix yet.
No, we have not.
A huge candy, in my experience. Anyway.
Are we going to get into a fight on whether you're the left side or right side?
That's ridiculous. Okay, so first of all,
No.
let's. I think really, just picture in your head, if I can't find it myself, once this episode airs, some old timey music, because there's an old story, like 1800s old.
No, Jam back in my day.
So Twix is based on the story of 2 brothers, Seamus and Earl. Last names lost to time.
Lost the time.
Twix
how do you
was
lose? Well, how do you lose your last name?
It was.
This story's already falling apart.
The story is so old, the last names are lost to time. Story of Seamus and Earl.
Seamus and Earl.
Yep.
All right, I'm with you.
Twix was once a single boy. At the unveiling, at one of the World's Fairs, I believe, in the 1800s, they introduced the world to their new concoction, of course, a biscuit with caramel and chocolate.
Never
around
done
it.
before.
It snapped, just like the relationship between the 2 brothers, because as they fought on the world stage,
Is this true?
like it was like a tug of war. The bars snapped, each of them had one in hand, and then they started to throw down with fisticuffs until they were separated.
Wow.
So from that point on, they refused to work together. Their candy factories were sequestered on either side of the street. There was 2 separate, like Willy Wonka style, with the big chimneys and everything, candy factories.
Who hired the Oompa Loompas?
And it had that one guy with the shopping cart that went in between each of them. He was like their messenger. Well, the fight was very reminiscent, actually, of the Time Bandits fighting in front of Napoleon in that scene in that movie.
Can't even keep a straight face.
So this is where the left and the right Twix were born. One from Seamus, one from Earl. Again, it's been lost to time who took
Glad
which
I didn't
side.
know this, because I don't know if I want to eat Seamus.
The left Twix is described as a crunchy
Sure it's
biscuit.
not Seamus.
Seamus, yes, Seamus. Seamus and Earl. Seamus and Earl. The left Twix is described as a crunchy biscuit base upon which caramel was flowed before being covered in chocolate. The right Twix, a cascade of caramel on a biscuit cloaked in chocolate. So in other words, the same damn thing. And this, my friends, was the reason for your left and right Twix. As Jeff has surmised, this is complete bullshit. Concocted by Mars and Twix. And now I am here to tell you, just like Paul Harvey, the rest of the story.
Paul Harvey.
All right, so that was BS. I didn't make that up, though. As you may think that I did not make that up. That is what you're going to find on the Twix website, as if it is fact. that this is why there's a left and right Twix.
Marketing campaign, man. They're all in on this.
So the question is, which did Maxxxine stomp on, the left or right?
I'm going with Seamus.
The truth of the matter is that Twix was invented by Mars in 1967.
1967?
Yes.
That was the year I was created.
It first came out in England and then in Europe soon after under the name Raider, as in Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Raiders?
That didn't change overseas until 1991, so it was known as the Raider Bar from 1967 until 1991. It wasn't introduced in the U.S. as Twix or in any fashion. Not, the Raider didn't come to the U.S. That was completely on the other side of the world.
Right.
Twix was introduced in the U.S. in 1979. The same year that X takes place. And I remember this because Twix was a big deal to me. It was a brand new chocolate bar. And it soon became, because it was new, because it was a novelty, it soon became my favorite. I love Twix. I was all about Twix, and I had to have it.
Your Honor, I must object. Now, this is chocolate and caramel. Now, how could it be crunchy?
Your Honor, we have uncovered evidence that there's something hidden inside this Twix bar. Look, under thick milk chocolate, under golden caramel, a cookie. A crunchy cookie.
Your verdict?
We find Twix delicious.
Twix cookie bars, chocolate caramel, and a surprising cookie crunch.
Every time I went to the grocery store or the candy store.
I want a Twix.
The name Twix is a portmanteau. You like that?
I do. That's a big
For
word.
twin sticks. It's just a shortened
Twix.
twin sticks.
Twin sticks. Twix.
And as I said, an immediate hit in 1979 in the U.S., soon followed by the peanut butter Twix
Ooh, I don't
in the
know if
early
I had
80s.
that.
Oh, it was good. It was good.
I'm assuming this no longer is discontinued.
Now, the thing about Twix is it's got that crunch. You can snap it, just like the brothers did during their ill-fated World's Fair unveiling. And the biscuit inside will snap and it'll crackle and it'll pop and all the crumbs will come out and you'll hear it. It's a visceral snap. So I used to love to snap it and just see what was inside.
Yeah,
Right.
now the little crumbs. You're losing all those crumbs.
You're losing all those crumbs, but you gotta snap. And I also love to do this. Not only would I bite the ridges off of my Reese's peanut
Okay,
butter cup,
yep, I'm with you on that one.
I would
Okay.
also scrape my teeth as if it was an Oreo cookie on the top of the Twix
chocolate.
to reveal the biscuit inside so I could see what that biscuit looked like. And it was obviously a long rectangular biscuit.
Speaking of
like
Raiders
little
of the
holes.
Lost Ark, you're like an archaeologist here.
I
on
am.
digging this damn
I
candy.
love the Twix, but the problem was I had braces, and the braces didn't love the Twix.
Caramel and the braces. Not
Yeah,
a good mix.
not a good mix.
Not a good mix with the Twix.
So what's your relationship with Twix? A favorite? Could you take it or leave it, or what's the deal?
I will say, back in the day, I probably didn't eat a lot of candy. But I will say now, when Halloween rolls around, we always have Twix in my little goodie basket. And 9 out of 10 times, they're still there after Halloween. So I
Yeah.
take them in my lunches. So, but those are just one. And they're actually the little fun size. And they're actually labeled left or right.
Yeah, that was concocted by Mars in 2012, the whole story with the brothers.
I was going to say, that's a pretty new campaign, but it's fun. Whatever. How are you going to differentiate your candy bar at this
Right.
point?
So they try to give the impression that, the campaign was, which do you prefer, the left or the right side?
Yeah.
And then 10 years later in 2022, Mars relented. Yeah, they're both
Yeah.
the same. You can get them still, two together, although they have been affected by shrinkage over the years. If you were to get a double Twix today, and if you remember them fondly from the late 70s, early 80s like I do, you think this isn't what it used to be. It's not just because you're bigger. It is because that they've been affected by shrinkage.
I think that's candy in general. because even like the Reese's peanut butter cups, nowhere near as big as they used to be.
Yeah.
And I think we mentioned this numerous times on other treat concession reviews. Candy shrinking.
It
Costing
is.
you more, getting less.
It is. And if you needed any proof, you just look at an old, if you find an old wrapper online, a picture of an old Twix wrapper, it'll say 60 grams. Your wrapper today will say 50 grams.
Cost you more to make that.
Over the years, besides peanut butter Twix, we've also gotten salted caramel flavor, cookies and cream, cookie dough, which I just saw on the shelf the other day.
Okay.
And then you've got the Twix ice cream bar, which is pretty much a Twix bar, but just in the freezer section of your
They
gas
just stuck it in
station.
a freezer?
Yeah.
And they charge you an extra 25 cents?
Yep. I think
it's
it's a little
frozen?
bit bigger. It's a little bit bigger.
Really?
But it is good. It does it. Yeah,
Well, that's
it
like a
hardens
frozen
the caramel.
Snickers. You get a frozen Snickers? Yeah.
Yep. Made in Cleveland, Tennessee. Thought I was going to say
Cleveland,
Ohio, didn't you?
Tennessee?
Yeah.
Ah, you fooled me. Like, is there like a New York, Arizona?
And Twix had a moment in the sun in the 90s when it was featured heavily on the Seinfeld episode, The Dealership, when the gang is in a car dealership. George goes to get a Twix in one of the vending machines.
Okay.
And it only comes out halfway and it never
Halfway.
drops. So he goes to get more change from Jerry or whoever so he can put it in to get the Twix, and it's gone. So somebody has gotten his Twix and another one, and he pesters the guy for the entirety of the episode.
How many episodes did they devote to like there's a whole episode of Pez. There's one with the Junior Mints.
The Junior Mints, yep.
The Junior Mint episode is probably
They mention Snapple like all the time.
Yeah, fine. I always loved the fact that he had the Superman magnet on his refrigerator.
Oh, he's a big Superman fan, is
Yeah.
Jerry Seinfeld.
Sure.
Yeah.
What's up with Superman?
Oh, and he had the, if you ever noticed, he had the movie poster for the 76 King Kong for the first few seasons on his wall.
I don't know if I remember that.
Yeah, he does, right next to his window.
Okay.
Right next to his window.
Oh, yes, you're right. I do remember now. Okay.
All right, so there you go. Twix.
Very cool. Twix. I can't believe we haven't covered Twix.
I know.
There you go. Now we can't go back.
All right, so just like Maxxxine, we have 3 X's this week.
Yes.
Maxxxine, Twix, and
The
the X from outer
space.
space.
Also 1967, by the way.
Also 1967. Yeah, so the birth year of Twix. Now, I really think that this is a missed opportunity for Ricola because I think that they should have those commercials come back with the guy in the mountain. But instead of Ricola, you can sing Guilala. That's how you should actually draw this thing out at the end of the movie with the big horn.
Just call him.
Guilala.
Oh, Guilala. I have
So,
never seen this.
This is put out these days by the Criterion banner, believe it or not.
I find this hard to believe.
Well, the reason being is that Criterion put out a box set. There's the studio that put out the X from Outer Space, Shaokichu.
Bless you.
No, let me say that again. Shaochiku is a studio in Japan that was known for its melodramas, but during the boom of kaiju films, not only Toho were putting them out, but you got the Gamera movies and a few others. During that boom, they gave in and decided to dip their toe into sci-fi, and this was the first result.
Woo! What
So
a result it is.
Criterion put out a box set it's called When Horror Came to Shachiku. That is what the box set is called. So the first movie that is in the box set is The X from Outer Space, and then the 3 that follow it in the set are actual more horror films than there are sci-fi, and they're actually really, really good. And this one is pretty much the outlier when you look at that box set.
You gotta start somewhere, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. We were talking about Austin Powers previously. It has got such a 60s Austin Powers vibe just from the music.
The music is, at one point I said, did Johnny Cash write the theme song to this? Like, what is going on here?
But the sets, the very colorful 60s sets, you just picture go-go dancers
One point I actually said everyone grab their go-go boots.
Yeah.
No, the miniature work is straight up go Thunderbirds go.
Oh yeah. The spaceship is like not stable in space. It's like you can see it shaking on the strings.
Which I love. This is the kind of stuff I live for. This is the stuff that you watch on, Saturday morning cartoons. This is the ship actually looks like Crow from Mystery Science Theater, like his head. Yeah, there's a lot of wacky stuff going on here, but it was it's a movie.
Have you ever seen this before?
No, I've never seen this.
I know. So Guilala didn't look familiar to you at all.
The only reason I think that he is familiar, I have seen pictures of him, and I think that they used him in like a car commercial a couple years ago.
I think you're right about that.
Yeah.
They also made like a very tongue-in-cheek remake of this in Japan. I don't think it ever made it here.
I love his design. Now, I know that a lot of people, you look like a space chicken. I think he's fun.
He is fun.
I think he's fun.
And this was a 4:30 movie. So this is how I know it. Right. So I saw it whenever there was a giant monster week on the 4:30 movie. And it's just so bizarre. I always found it one of the most unsettling movies of the kaiju genre because the thing looks weird, first of all, and its roar is bizarre. Like, it's
like we got to differentiate ourselves from the rest of them. All right, let's make them sound really stupid.
And it's kind of got like a blob green slime kind of a vibe to it because it comes from a spore. And then at the end, the weird shaving cream that it's
like I said, the spaceship that looks like a Hot Pocket.
Yeah.
It's a Hostess cream cake here going on.
Now, I will give it this. Unlike a lot of the Godzilla movies, it opens with an actual shot of the real Mount Fuji and a real helicopter coming down. I'm like, oh, they spared no expense with this movie.
Did they steal it from another movie?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
All right.
So you're introduced to the FAFC.
Yeah.
The Fuji Astro Flight Center. And they have a storehouse of nuclear fuel in this flight center.
All right.
And they are planning a trip to Mars. Or was it the moon that they were? No, it was Mars that they were ultimately going to.
Yeah, because at one point we're told there's an awful lot of there's many aliens and asteroids between here and Mars.
Because the thing is they had to stop on the moon before they continued on to Mars.
Which is actually what we have to do now. They were they were a little prescient in that regard.
But all the previous Mars missions that they've tried to put on have failed. Why? Because of this UFO that keep showing up. Like
this thing is like C blocking them left and right. It's like, can you do I need to pay a toll? What are you doing? It's just like buzzing around.
And, in one of the best inspirational speeches ever, before the astronauts on this new mission go up, their commander down on the ground tells them, sadly, the previous pilots will now be floating in space forever.
Okay, can't wait to go.
But you, please, have at it. They call the spaceship, the Thunderbird spaceship, the Astro Boat.
Astro Boat.
Yes.
So did you watch this? Do you have this Criterion box set?
I do.
You do. Yeah. So did you watch it subtitled?
I watched it both. I did my due diligence.
Wow.
I watched it both in Japanese and then I watched it in English.
Okay, because I will say I watched it on Max and it is only subtitled.
I watched it on Max for the Japanese version, and then I switched over to the disc for the English version.
I will say the handful of clips that I saw on YouTube of the English dub is silly.
Yeah, that's sometimes part of the charm of watching these, like the bad dubbing. That's always near and dear to my heart.
Yeah, so, I mean, they play it pretty straight. Like it's not.
But what's funny is that the character of Lisa, an American actress, Peggy Neal, who was 19 at the time of this movie.
19.
She was a college student from the U.S. who, on the basis of her blondness, got parts in Japanese science fiction movies.
Because she was a novelty, huh?
For whatever reason, in the English dub, she sounds exactly like Terry Garr in Young Frankenstein. Roll it down. So she's got like a thick German or whatever accent, as does the goateed guy accent.
That beard is that's a Van Dyke, right? Is that what they refer to them as, a Van
But
Dyke?
it is revealed she is delivering her lines in English
In
because
English.
the Terry Gard dub is matched to her lips.
Why would they even dub her then?
I don't know. But
silent. They filmed it silently. Yeah, we'll fix it in post.
So she's the only female member of this team going to Mars. And there's at one point, the quote unquote comic relief member of the team says, "Oh, Lisa, I can hear your heart pounding." And he puts his head close to her
there's some questionable. At one point, I'm like, are we getting like the Fantastic Four origin story going on here? Because we got the three guys, and boy, they like their cognac in space.
Yes, they do.
Yeah, screw Tang. I want some cognac. Yeah,
So-
that guy was questionable.
So they go up into space on the way to Mars. And of course, they run into the same UFO, which becomes a non-issue in this movie.
No.
You never know what this UFO is. It
doesn't tie into anything.
Zero to do with Guilala.
Yeah. No, it does nothing.
No.
It's a weird plot device for no other reason.
It's
than
like
to
an
keep them from
annoyance.
Mars. Like I said, it's like a mosquito. It's a hot pocket. It's just a pie in space.
But whatever it's emitting radiation. So it makes one of the crew members sick when it's flying around them and they have to make an emergency landing on the moon.
Yeah, they got it going on in the moon there, by the way.
I know they got swinging music going on the moon.
Yeah, it's like square dance and funk going on.
There's like the secretary of the moon base has a crush on the captain, just like Lisa does.
Captain Sano. You nailed it on the head, though, that this does have green slime vibes to it. And it takes a very long time to get to the monster.
48 minutes.
Well, I clocked it at 47. So, yeah.
Because again, the 4:30 movie was in a 90-minute time slot. So when you took out time for commercials, that meant your movie was 75 minutes long. So I'm thinking this movie can use those edits. And I think because all I remember was the monster. I don't remember like an hour of boring stuff. Like,
no,
like
you don't
what
want
is an
to.
actual
You want to just get to it. There's a lot of exposition going on here. You got this weird love triangle thing kind of going on. You know what it was? Did you ever see the movie Angry Red Planet?
Yeah.
It's almost the exact same setup with the four crew members. And I don't know which one came first, but I kept having flashbacks to that. And I'm like, wait a minute, maybe I have seen this movie because they're interchangeable except for the monster.
So they get the new doctor, they take off again, and then they go through an asteroid field that actually breaches their hull. So the comic relief guy sticks his ass in the hole.
Butts in space. He plugs it with his butt. Hey, is that an asteroid? Yeah.
So then they somehow stabilize the ship so the guy can take his butt out. So there's a gaping hole.
Hold your breath, everybody.
There's still a hole in the hull. They don't fix it.
Yeah. And then they get caught in the tractor beam. The
UFO comes back, and then after the UFO comes back, they see all these weird things stuck on the outside of the ship. So that's when they take their spacewalk. You're like a half an hour into this movie already. You're like, is this the right movie?
It's like space herpes.
So they're trying to clear all these little spores off the ship. And Lisa decides to take one for herself and puts it in a little container and brings it back to Earth.
Well, I mean, she was the biologist, right?
Because they can't go to Mars anymore because now they don't have enough fuel and the mission's been scuppered, as they say. So you don't know if these spores are just in space, if they came from the UFO. I don't know. Maybe they did. Maybe there was a tie between them and Guilala, but you're never specifically told.
You didn't even bring up the sexy shower scene.
Oh, yes.
The shower scene.
Where the ladies...
There's a trampoline in space for some reason.
Not even in the base on the Mars. On the moon.
Yeah, I think there was a mariachi band on the moon. I don't... We're told that there's no atmosphere on the moon, so it makes vegetables grow bigger. Yeah. What? Lisa also seemed very shocked by the anti-gravity in the ship, and I'm like, did she even attend space camp?
Yeah, I know. When what was it? The
Zero
clipboard,
gravity,
clipboard that was like a jump scare to her. Like, oh,
Yeah. So you're right. It's 48 minutes before Guilala. So he grows from these spores that they brought back?
Well, yes, somehow he ingests energy. So, like in the lab, they have it in a containment cell, and the goateed guy says, "Let's have a party at my house. Forget this spore."
Let's forget this spore. That won't play into the plot.
No. So while they're at the party, it's a swinging party, by the way.
Yeah.
While they're at the party,
on each other left and right. Like I said, the moon's got it going on.
Well, again, the captain has both these girls pining for him, so they're like in competition with each other during the course of the movie.
Can I see your captain's log?
They get a panicked call from the guards at the lab. There's, something's wrong here. So they all run to the lab and they see that the little container that held the spore is broken apart, and there's a big chicken footprint like in the lab.
He is a space chicken, basically.
There's a blackout. There's an earthquake. Everybody runs outside the lab, and Guilala, fully formed as a giant kaiju, comes out of the hillside for whatever reason.
Yeah, we don't even see him like a gestation, nothing. He's just all of a sudden he's like 100 foot tall. Right.
And you actually see him, and this is surprising for a 60s kaiju movie, stepping on people during one scene.
This guy is like, you think that some of these shots they would have actually take two, because he's stumbling around like a friggin' drunk tourist.
He actually trips or like goes to one knee during one scene where he's in the city.
It's like too much sake here. It's like, all right, Can we take a take two on that, please?
But
that's good. It's good. We got it in the can.
What's extra ridiculous about this, just like apart from the suit looking like a big chicken with shoulder pads, is that it moves in real time. Like at least the Toho movies had a forced slow motion, so it seemed like that they were massive.
Well, the music doesn't help either. This is it's like a folk dance going on.
Whenever the thing comes on screen, the same music plays.
They might as well just play the funky chicken. Yeah. The fighter jets are like literally bouncing off his head.
And he's got like the Megalon type like fireballs coming out of his mouth that blow up the jets.
And he's got some weird shell I don't know. Like I said, he's a cool. Listen, he's different.
Yeah, his head looks like a cross between a chicken and a jet plane in itself, because he's got like these two wings coming off the side of his head.
Which is cool. Listen, give me something different.
Yeah. Again, that's also what struck me as a kid watching this, because the monster was just so different than anything in the Godzilla movies. Yeah. Except maybe for Gigan. He was very Gigan reminiscent.
Gigan was cool. Gigan at least had the giant, the big hook arms.
But again, this is after it comes out of the hillside and starts tearing stuff up, you go back to the FAFC. Guilala is what we've decided to call this monster. And then another character ponders that. Space monster Guilala.
That'll look good on a poster on my t-shirt.
And they immediately surmise that he is going around the countryside looking for power sources that he can eat, because he's going to dams, he's going to nuclear plants.
Listen, he's just a sailor in town. He wants to go see the sights.
Yeah.
He could throw a boat just like a true gargantua, though.
Oh, yeah, that was a great little scene. I will say this, that the miniatures are quite impressive, that they spared no expense with the cityscapes.
Yeah, too bad he was tripping over him.
Yeah.
He couldn't stand up right. It's like, I'm not taking you serious.
Keep rolling. Just keep rolling.
Right,
come on.
A take two at least. No.
Yeah.
We can't rebuild that. And I guess they immediately surmise he's like 15,000 tons. They're like, oh, well, yeah, you stepped on that scale back there. We know exactly.
And at one point, one of the pilots says, his fins stopped glowing. That means he must be losing energy. I'm like, his fins never glowed to begin with.
We can't. We'll fix it in post. They never did.
And my wife pointed out, like in the control center, when they have like the little cardboard Guilala.
He was fantastic. They went all out with that cardboard cutout.
So they're moving him on the map so you can see.
Yeah.
But my wife is like, is the little guy wearing sneakers? And I'm looking like he is, because he's a red figure with white feet.
White feet. Which is exactly what the guy in the costume was. We can't afford feet.
So Lisa also comes up with a great idea that maybe they need the gilalalinium is what they call it. The substance.
Say that 3 times. I couldn't even. I wrote it down and I'm like, I can't even get this to roll out of my mouth.
So they need to go back to the moon to get some of the source material that they pulled, I guess, the same spore type stuff.
She just wants to go back and see Mashiko again. They had something going on.
So they go up into space to look for this Guilala, and they run into the UFO again. And again, it's just like a mosquito. Doesn't really do anything. It just flies around them for a little while.
Yeah. But meanwhile, they just keep the ground control is like, it's like FAFC. And they just keep calling it out. And I'm like, yeah. So is this where he turns into like a giant kickball?
Yeah, because at one point he goes to like the nuclear reactor or something, like a big energy source, and then he becomes like he's fused into a giant ball that can fly. So now he's going towards the FAFC because they have nuclear fuel. So this is where all our main characters are.
But so there's a whole sequence that's cut out of this because they were on the moon, and then all of a sudden, somehow the Astro boat landed and Lisa is like trapped. She went back to the lab and is trapped in it.
This is probably a good idea on their part because I don't need to see that,
No,
Yeah.
But all of a sudden she's back on Earth and she's trapped in this lab.
Yeah, you
with
surmise
this thing on top of her.
Because there is some exposition because you see the Astro boat starting to enter Earth's atmosphere again once they have the Guilala. And they've gotten rid of the UFO for the umpteenth time. And so now you're back on Earth. So you're assuming that they landed. Guilala, once he makes it onto the FAFC property, then Lisa gets trapped under the rubble. And she screams for a good 10 minutes. And you're like,
and they can't lift this thing off her. And yet, so they finally get her out and her leg is all damaged and bleeding. And yet, like 2 minutes later, she's running over that hill like Usain Bolt. she's just a blasting. It's like, well, I guess that didn't really affect you.
And her leg was bleeding and mangled and everything when they pulled her out of that thing.
Good as new.
But the one scene that I remember more than any other from watching this as a kid is Guilala chasing that little Jeep.
This is spectacular.
Yeah.
This is the highlight of this entire movie is the rapid fire cuts of these two knuckleheads in the truck with the
nuclear fuel that he wants.
It's like this is not even like a little it's like a 5-hour energy drink to him.
Yeah.
It's just a little shot glass. Mm-hmm. But he's somehow chasing this truck. And they're cutting to the live action with a superimposed claw coming down. And then they cut back to him chasing him. And it's just clearly it's a little model truck. But the way it's all cut together really builds the suspense. And I'm like, I'd probably be shitting my pants if this thing was chasing after me. But it was fun. It was just like, all right.
And of course, the captain's like, faster. Go faster.
Right.
I'm like, no, I thought slowing down would be a good idea right now.
I actually think this is where Spielberg got that idea for the dinosaurs.
I think you're probably right. Yeah.
Object and mirror may be closer than you think.
A Guilala and mirror may be closer than you think.
So they're luring him away with the energy you don't want him to eat. Yeah. Okay.
So, and this is just to buy them time so they can multiply the Guilala and weaponize it and put it in their fighter jets, which they do. So this is like a very, as a kid, this went right over my head, but it's almost a very adult type scene because what is spewing out of Guilala looks like certain kind of body fluid.
Marshmallow fluff is what I wrote down, or shaving cream. We're gonna go with that.
But it's just, they're hitting him with the weapons that are filled with this substance, and what the point is to encase him so that he can't absorb any more energy. And it's working because they start hitting him with this stuff, and it starts to encase him in this foam. It is cocoon.
A really weird visual.
Yeah.
Yeah, I said grab some chocolate and graham crackers because if that's melted marshmallow right there, you got one hell of a s'more.
What a world! What a world! He starts to melt.
He does melt away into like a little, like when the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man.
Yeah, and until he's all that's left of him is that little spore, and Lisa runs right at it, and she's going to grab it with her bare hand. They're like, "Nope, get the tongs, somebody, get the tongs."
Right. Listen,
somebody just happened. Oh, these tongs that I keep in my back pocket. Here you go.
Tongs, you say? Tongs I have.
So they put it right back in the same containment receptacle that they brought it back to Earth in, but they realize it's just going to get bigger again, just like it did before. So they have no choice but to shoot it into space, which they do.
They found him, which is where they found him to begin with.
Yeah.
I hope he lands on that UFO.
I hope he does too.
Right? He's just causing havoc on.
So you just assume that he is just going to grow into Guilala again, but just in the middle of space.
But wouldn't all those spores eventually become?
Yeah, you'd think so, wouldn't you?
I don't know. We never got a
well,
sequel.
maybe they're, unless
we get a
they,
sequel?
if they don't find an end. No, you never got a sequel to this. It was only released in Japan. It was released in March 1967 in Japan. Theatrically, amazingly, it never made its way to the U.S. It was sold directly to television to American International TV in 1968. So it premiered on television a year later. So American International got their hands on it. They dubbed it, gave it the Terry Garr dub, as I like to call it, and put it on TV.
I wish they had come up with a better name. Guilala. At that point, you could just name it whatever
It's very fanciful sounding, isn't it? It's not like very threatening.
No, it's not. It's almost like you want to laugh at him. Guilala.
Yeah.
My name is Guilala. Shut up, dude. It's George. The monster scenes are fun. Like I said, the highlight is that car chase at the end.
Yeah.
It's goofy and it's over the top. Yeah. I'm assuming that Mystery Science Theater has had a field day with this.
Mystery Science Theater in its first incarnation never had this on, but Riff Tracks, Riff Tracks have done it. So
wow, it took that long.
But it's only on the paid version. Riff Track, you can get Riff Tracks movies.
Paid version.
Well, I'm a big Riff Tracks fan. I even like it. Dare I say, I like Riff Tracks better than Mystery Science Theater.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
So there are, if you look up Riff Tracks on Prime or on Tubi, there are free ones that you can see just on there. But if you watch a Riff Tracks all the way through at the end credits, they always say, if you saw this on something and didn't pay for it, do us a favor, go to our website and donate. So when you go to their website, there is a whole bunch of content on there that is not available on Prime or on Tubi. So, for example, they did Snow Beast, which was the 1977 Yeti movie that we covered.
Sure.
They did X from Outer Space and a number of them. So they've held back on what they release to the streaming services.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
we should do that.
So if you you can actually pay monthly for a subscription to Riff Tracks because they come out with new movies like monthly or even weekly, I think. So you have access if you pay monthly to their whole range of catalog.
Huh.
Yeah, I'd like to see.
I didn't realize that.
I'd like to see this.
Riff Tracks, also an X, by the way.
The X from Outer Space. Is this bucket proof? Would we dare give this buckets?
I did write buckets down, but I kind of hate judging something like this.
It's fun. It's just a fun watch.
It is. It's at this point you can make fun of it. I think.
Yeah.
I think it's
fun to talk about.
Yeah.
Fun to watch. I would give X from Outer Space 3 buckets. 3.
I have it at 2 3/4.
2 3/4.
Yeah.
I would get a Guilala action figure if one were available.
You're gonna tell me that there's not?
Probably somewhere there is.
There has to be something.
Yeah. Guilala, we hardly knew ye.
Yeah. He's all foamed up now.
Yeah. All right. So what else did we do this week?
So I kind of mentioned this earlier, which is on Friday, I finally got to see a band that I've been looking forward to for a very long time. They are a local band, and by local band, I mean that they are from New Jersey. They are they're referred to as the ultimate New Jersey cover band. I am talking about the Nerds. I don't know if you're familiar with these 4 gentlemen.
No.
They have been around since 1985. Which ties right in there with our original movie. So they play the Putnam County Country Club over here probably once a year, maybe twice. It's never lined up. I've never been able to see them. I've been told that they're fantastic and I should check them out. And so my work tried as hard as possible to keep me away, but I was able to finally make it. I didn't see the opening of the show, but place was jam-packed on Friday night. These gentlemen go all out. They are plaid on plaid with the big dad socks, and they have the big black glasses with the tape in the middle of them. They have on-stage names such as Spaz, Mongo, Stretch, and Biff. And like I said, they've been together since 1985. One of the original band members, I think the keyboardist, passed away about 9 years ago. Otherwise, it's the original lineup. And everything from R&B, funk, dance, classic rock. They'll go from John Cougar Mellencamp into John Denver, and then Engelbert Humperdinck, and then Guns N' Roses. At one point in the middle of one of their songs, they segue into Hava Nagila, and the entire crowd is just on board. They put on a great show. If you go to YouTube and you type in the Nerds, there's a fair amount of videos up there of some of their performances, but from what I saw, it doesn't compare to the live show. They'll launch into one song and then halfway through transition into another song and then cut back. So they're just a big party band. They do weddings. Okay. It looks like all they do is tour. And I did find one rockumentary on YouTube where they talk about the fact that when they first got together, they were, a little bit of a cover band, but they were really trying to kind of make their own thing and cut an album, which I think is actually called Poultry in Motion, which is funny in and of itself. But the studio was like, yeah, we're digging, the whole vibe of the nerd thing, but we're not digging this original work. So they just decided to become a cover band. Okay. And they lean into it, and they sound pretty damn good. There was a couple times one of the guys' sons got up on stage and sang a song. A lot of fun. They were a lot of fun. They actually were recently just on Daryl's house. Daryl Hall has that show. He's out of Pauling. Yes. Pauling, New York.
I saw Peter Tork at Daryl's house.
Oh, get out of here. Yeah. Oh, that's cool. Nice. So if you just go to the-nerds.com, you can see their entire itinerary, and you can buy t-shirts and listen to some of their music. So they were fun, and I was happy to finally get to see them.
So great.
I probably will definitely get a chance to see them again at some point, hopefully.
Yeah.
And enjoy the entire show. So,
nice.
Like I said, it's across the board cover band, but they're pretty damn good. Everybody.
When was the last time you went to go see a show?
It's been a very long time. My tinnitus it does not my ears are still ringing from a Styx concert from 1999.
Yeah, if I can't go, even if I'm in the bleachers, I will take at least paper towels to shove into to rip up and shove into my ears.
Wow. So that's what I did. That was my what else did I do this week?
Well, mine is musical as well.
Oh, okay.
Because this weekend that we are recording is the weekend of July 13th, which is the anniversary, speaking of 1985, the Live Aid concerts.
Oh, that's right.
Years ago, they came out with the DVD set of the day. And miraculously, they got most everybody's approval to actually put the performances on there, except for Led Zeppelin. You won't see that because they're not they weren't very happy with that performance. But luckily,
it is whatever.
Not only do I have this box set, but I still have my copy that I taped from MTV.
Do you really?
Yep, years ago, and it has the commercials
and everything
with the commercials.
Wow,
yes. And the funny thing about MTV commercials is that they were all mostly local commercials.
But this played not just on MTV, right? Because I remember watching it from my house, and we did not. Did I watch it after the fact, not live?
Well, the thing is that it was a 16-hour odyssey, right? So MTV aired the whole thing, but that night, I think from 7 or 8 o'clock on ABC broadcast.
Okay. All right. That's probably what I watched.
Yeah.
It had to have been what I watched.
But, that it was live. So it was only whoever was playing at that time. I think it was Mick Jagger and Tina Turner, Duran Duran were on, and a few others.
Thompson Twins.
And they probably gave you highlights of the previous bands.
Yeah, because obviously that Queen performance was pretty spectacular.
Yeah, so I'm still actually watching through it this weekend, and I'll probably watch more of it today.
Who's the most obscure that you can think of?
Oh, there's a lot, because there was a lot that were because Bob Geldof at the time, being very shrewd about
Boomtown Rats,
getting
right?
because he put the whole thing together.
Right.
So he's asking people that he knows will get. He's asking bands to play that he knows people will call in, and donate if they're watching them on TV. So probably in my experience, probably like there's a few one-hit wonders from the 80s that are on the card.
Okay.
So I would say Nick Kershaw's probably one of them that has kind of been lost to time. He had that song, Wouldn't It Be Good, if you remember? And of course, that's what he sings. But there's other bands that were big in the early 80s, like Ultravox, that are playing. Boomtown Rats, of course, because Bob Geldof is. Spandau Ballet is there, and
the Fix.
Not the Fix. Fix were not invited. Howard Jones was there. He did a song.
Yeah, Howard Jones. That is one guy I never got to see.
Yeah, Adam Ant was there. He did a song. But then of course you got your bigger names like your U2. They had like a career making, even though they were big already. Don't get me wrong. They had Pride in the Name of Love, and they had Sunday Bloody Sunday. But I think Live Aid really put them into another strata, because so many people saw them and they were incredible. U2 were on, Dire Straits were on, Sting was on. Of course, Phil Collins famously played England and the US.
Yeah, so he played Wembley Stadium, jumped on the Concorde, flew over to Philadelphia, and then played. So he was the only person that actually played both stadiums.
Right. And I've said it on the show before, that's how I got into David Bowie, is seeing him at Live Aid. And of course,
Let's Dance.
He didn't do Let's Dance. He did Modern Love off of that album, and Rebel Rebel and Heroes. Most importantly, Heroes, because that's what struck me, that song. As you mentioned, Queen, obviously. Blew everybody away.
Iconic.
The Who were there.
Who? What? Where?
And who? Oh, Elton John and George Michael did a big thing, and then McCartney closed out the English version of the show. And then on the American side, as I said, you had Jagger and Tina Turner, you had Duran Duran, you had Neil Young, you had Tom Petty, you had the Cars. It was a bizarre choice to have Duran Duran in America. I guess they had to mix it up a little bit, but it was kind of like the English artists were very much sequestered to the English show, and then the American artists were at the American show, with some exceptions. Like I think Clapton was at the American show, and as I said, Duran Duran. But yeah, I've been watching through that stuff. That was a big day for me, because I was a huge music fan.
That's huge.
That would seem like an impossibility today.
Yeah,
with all those artists,
you just don't have the star power, though. I mean, geez, I watch like some of these award shows, and I'm like, I don't recognize a single one of these actresses or actors or musicians.
But the weird thing about the 80s, and like I said before, that I thought that 85 was the pinnacle of the 80s, and it could be Live Aid Day was the pinnacle of 1985 for me. But the thing about the 80s is that as MTV took over, it was taking some of those older acts along with it. Like Eric Clapton still had hits in the 80s. Obviously Bowie still had hits in the 80s. Everybody knew who the Who was. So it was still all these artists
like Aerosmith, a lot of these guys. Yeah.
All these artists that crossed generations. So it wasn't just kids. It wasn't just kids listening to music still. But I think now, to your point, nowadays, I don't know who the kids listen to anymore.
Yeah, well, that's back to my experience, which is going to see these guys, the nerds, who are all probably my age. The weird mix of people that were there, families with their little kids, dancing along with people my age, younger people. It was a little cross generational, which is nice to see.
Yeah,
but that's cool. Live Aid. I guess I don't think I realized that they released a box set.
Yep, they do.
Yeah,
they do. Although it's curated, it's edited. It's not like the entire day.
Well, I mean, you're going to stick 16 hours on
Each artist had 22 minutes on stage, because they had to get on, get off, because there was all these other people waiting behind them.
Yeah.
So they each had an allotted time slot of 22 minutes. So that allowed maybe 2 to 4 songs, depending on the length of the songs. So as you're watching it, the box set, what it does is it just has the artist's most well-known songs on the box
so
set.
it's not if they came out and did like 4 songs, they may not have all.
You
4
might like for example, that Nick Kershaw guy, like
Right.
he I think did 3 songs, but they
Okay.
only have like the big hit on the box
Right.
set.
Yeah.
Um,
Sorry, Nick.
yeah,
We gotta
sorry.
cut you for time.
And generally, I don't mind too much because obviously the Queen stuff and like the big names, they have all their songs, right? The acts that matter. But every once in a while, for example, when Live Aid was broadcast in 1985, I was a huge Sting and Police fan.
Sure. Yeah.
So when he came on, it was a big deal. And he did like solo versions of just him and the guitar of Roxanne and Message in a Bottle. Message in a Bottle is like one of my favorite songs ever. So that was like the highlight for me as a 14-year-old watching it. That is not on the box set. They cut that in favor of Roxanne. So that type of thing I have issue with it, but it's few and far between. Generally, the box set is very well done. So there you have it.
Very cool. That's
Yes.
a big commitment right there.
Yep. So what else are we doing?
Holy crap. We are going to the MCU. And so is Deadpool.
Yeah.
He's
Next
coming.
time we're coming. We're going back.
This has been a long time coming. I can't believe this is actually happening.
I know this movie has been teased for so long.
Have you seen all the commercials? They're doing Heineken commercials. They're doing PSAs for silence your phone before the movie starts. It's a little
I mean,
too buddy now.
You already got me, so don't overdo
Well,
it.
that's just it, right? We state this all the time. You've already got my money. Don't oversell it.
Yeah.
You know, I can see where some people, can only take Ryan Reynolds in small doses. He's
Deadpool, Wolverine. Is it Deadpool and Wolverine?
It's Deadpool and Wolverine, right? Because I think when we were originally looking into pairing this up with something, we were leaning into the ampersand. But I think that you actually struck a beautiful chord here with our pairing because it has a Canadian connection, just like Wolverine, who is a Canuck.
Strange Brew.
I have not seen this movie in a very long time.
I was a huge Bob and Doug McKenzie fan in the 80s. I had the comedy album, which has the track Take Off on it.
Take Off, eh?
And I forget what channel it was, but I was able to get the SCTV episode.
So this was SCTV. I think they ran like on Friday nights or something.
It might have been on PIX or some channel like that, or WOR that ran them. But I would watch them. I probably taped them if they ran at night, just so I could see the Bob and Doug McKenzie segments.
Yeah. They were Wayne's World before Wayne's World was Wayne's World.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Oh, and so much better than Wayne's World, in my opinion.
Wow.
Rick Moranis, come on. Dave Thomas.
I know. Dave Thomas. He went on to create Wendy's, right? Not the same Dave Thomas. Yeah, no, I'm actually, and it's funny because I just reserved my copy at the library, and I'm reading through the description, and I have absolutely no memory of what happens in this movie, none whatsoever. Although
so
I
good.
did immediately.
The less you know, the better. Then I guess.
I think so. Yeah, I think so. I think it'll be like me watching it for the very first time again.
Yeah.
This is a beauty of short-term memory.
So yeah, Deadpool and Wolverine, along with Strange Brew.
That is a hell of a combo right there.
Mm-hmm.
So we shall have some fun with it.
Yeah,
as always. So, but that's next episode.
Yes, it is. So you'll have to wait, just like we will.
First day, second day, we'll be right there when it drops. We'll see how this pans out. So, all right. Well, thank you very much for listening, and come back next time.
Yes, please. All right, everybody. Thanks.
All right.
Bye. If you like what you just heard, be sure to follow TMI Confessionals of the Nerd Kind on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Spotify, or whatever you listen to your podcasts on. Also, be sure to email us at tmipodcast2018@gmail.com.
You can also follow us on all of our socials. We're on Instagram, X, Facebook, Threads. Just go to tmiconfessionalspodcast.com. All of our links are there. And leave us a 5-star review. See you at the concession stand. Hey, is that an asteroid?